Kia ora, g'day. Welcome back once again here with part 6 of my reaction to Mr. Sam Bamford's Two Worlds Collide podcast, where he's interviewing Scott Jones. So let's jump back in.
But yeah, so
I mean, but that's reality of the situation. Yes, the second man was very, very brave also, but the first man was Ben.
Yeah.
And the second man, he was doing his job.
they gave him a medal of gallantry.
There
He's
you
got
go.
post nominals. You're a fucking hero, dude.
Yeah. If you rock around with one of those at Anzac Day, everyone knows.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. And for all the lady listeners out there, you see a jacked up dude in a suit wearing an orange colored medal. That's the one you want to take home.
Are you just going to wear one now?
Yeah, I'm going to buy one. Stolen valor.
There probably are some people out there. Maybe that's why people do it. Maybe that's why the stolen valor happens, because they're hoping to pick up some granny from the RSL or something, or the RSA.
Yeah, maybe we could make some merch, just medals of gallantry for the boys.
Yeah.
But so
I'm actually waiting for my Ben Robert Smith merch to come in from Zero Limits.
I should have brought it for you.
I know.
Hand delivered.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, look, so it was an absolute the trial was an absolute dumpster fire. But many of his mates, dudes that I respect and look up to, got on the stand and said, that's not how it bloody happened. It happened like this. And there was a lot of pushback. But because...
And that's interesting, especially as they've spoken about really well about the 21 witnesses, you still hear that and see that written in a number of articles to this day, with Andrew Hastie and him testifying along with 20 of his peers. Like, no, he's not. And Scott Jones has clarified that in this podcast, really well done and well run by Sam Bamford, the Two Worlds Collide podcast. It wasn't a case of 21 operators from the regiment all coming out and testifying against RS, which is what the popular narrative has been. And the media has done a great job, mainstream media has done a great job of being deceptive in how they've communicated the witnesses. And anybody that watches and listens to Sam's podcast here, Two Worlds Collide with Scott Jones, will have a much better understanding and a better appreciation. And to hear Scott talking about some of the guys that were there testifying and witnesses for RS, awesome. Like, I assume those guys can't come out and show their faces either, likely because now preparations are being made for it to move towards trial, and we will likely never know the identities of those ones who I call cowards in regards to pointing the fingers and making the allegations about RS.
These dudes are a bit looser, had a few piss-related incidents and maybe wore a fancy dress costume at the fat lady's arms or whatever, they were discredited for that. And the judge said, well, they're unreliable witnesses. I'm not going to listen to them. But I'll tell you.
Wow, that's crazy. They are unreliable witnesses because there's some photos, presumably. I don't know. I wasn't there in the courtroom. But if you ever listen to that, how could you and why would you throw out key actual witness testimonies, not like Blank and Wank Drew Wasty and his rubbish? He wasn't there. He didn't witness any of that stuff, the allegations of what's been shared. He was too busy acting like a padre and having heart-to-hearts with the rejects that got tossed over to Blinken 4 Squadron. So, with all due respect to 4 Squadron, that's not a dig at you fellas. It's just a specific dig at those useless wank stains that got sent over there. So, Wastebag didn't see anything. He had hurt feelings. And it really, what did the wording say in one of the articles that I read? He was really shattered or hurt by receiving the Chock of the Year award. So, but you accept his testimony as somebody that didn't see anything and who had hurt feelings and who felt like during his time on selection that his experience counted for nothing and that he was treated like a scumbag because it supported the media's narrative of RS being a bully. There's nothing I've heard sounds like RS has been a bully. If one of the operators was a coward and he got reminded of being a coward, whether that's from RS or somebody else, that's not a bully. That's just the person having to eat the harsh reality and make a decision. Who are the other people? The other people that were useless, that weren't up to scratch with regards to being able to perform, and in that type of role, they'd lost the trust of people within their team, including the patrol commander, being RS at that time. You're going to have a hard time trying to win that back if you've lost the trust of your team. So obviously they've had a bit of a sook, like Scott Jones has spoken about here, and they've come together after RS has left the unit and then conspired to try to bring him down. That's my take anyway. innocent until proven guilty, until the prosecution proves 5 allegations of war crime murder, 1 let alone 5, beyond reasonable doubt to a jury of his peers as part of that legal process is supposed to take place. He is innocent until proven guilty. Or he's just innocent. So the trial hasn't even happened yet.
Who to me sounded like a reliable witness? A dude called, I think it was Person 81, which again, you can Google. Do your homework, ladies and gents. He was the current serving CO of the SASR regiment, a colonel. And during the main allegation where Ben machine gunned allegedly a dude with a prosthetic leg, he was standing in the middle of the compound, which is no bigger than probably half a basketball court. And I'll give you the photos. You can have a good look at them and do what you will with them.
And so you can picture that, right? You can picture the size of a half a basketball court and how small that space is, right? Even if you include the sidelines. Maybe if you even include out to 3 or 4 rows worth of seating or whatever, a little mini grandstand. Like, that's not a big area. So if you got Person 81, who, according to Scott Jones, was the current serving commanding officer of the regiment, they're in the compound at the time when this alleged machine gunning of a detainee took place by RS. And on one of the reactions that I did, a reaction to The Guardian, I think on the YouTube channel, where they've broken it down into sections, and I can't remember whether it's part 2 or part 4, one of those anyway. You've got one of the operators who claims that RS seemed to do it as like just blatantly in front of everyone there. And nobody else saw that, not even the CO who's standing in the middle. It's just a bit crazy to me. Also, that same, I think it might be Person 24, don't quote me on it, but I think Person 24 was the guy that said RS was just making a spectacle of it, or words to that effect. Also said that he told his patrol commander, who I can't remember the number, but he claims that he told his patrol commander. Now, that particular patrol commander that he says that he claims that he told in his testimony, really dislikes RS or disliked RS, had no time for him. But he says, so this patrol commander who Person 24 says that he told, who he knows this patrol commander doesn't like RS. Well, that particular patrol commander, who apparently doesn't like RS, said that he wasn't told anything of the sort. So it's just, I don't know, man. These witnesses' testimonies are just not adding up for me anyway, based on what I've heard so far. And I get it. I acknowledge I'm not in the courtroom. I'm not there sitting, listening, getting a read of or feeling for and looking at the body language of the individuals. There's a whole bunch of stuff which will come into play, no doubt, for the jury who will be sitting in there and who will get to, I would imagine, see and hear a heck of a lot of detail and information. But they'll also be able to use their other senses in terms of what they're feeling as they look at the person, and reading all of those, not only verbal but non-verbal cues and all that sort of stuff, which I assume they will use and formulate each individual as part of their consideration / determination in terms of whether judging RS guilty beyond reasonable doubt, or like there's no reasonable doubt, so how can we find him guilty? Anyway.
You can see all the operators going through the rubble, and this officer is there in the middle of the compound having a meeting with all the seniors about what we do next. He said he didn't see a fucking thing. This is a colonel. This is the CEO of the SAS is saying, I did not see a thing. It did not happen. It blatantly did not happen. The incident where Ben machine gun a detainee did not happen.
So did Person 81, the current serving CO, the commanding officer of the regiment at the time, did his testimony count for anything in the eyes of Bazenko, Comova Bazenko? Like, I'd love to know. I have no idea. Like I said, I wasn't sitting in that courtroom, and I wasn't watching this trial online in terms of like some people were or were able to, at least for a period of time. Crazy.
But they believe the digger, because he said, out of the corner of my eye, I heard some gunshots, turned around, I saw something, and that's what it was. And
that's nuts, eh? It's crazy. Like, all the peanut gallery, that includes me. I'm part of the peanut gallery because I'm giving my reactions to these things. But the additional peanut gallery that has no military experience, that is judging everything based on what they've been fed through their eyeballs and their ears by the mainstream media. Like, just, there's probably no getting through to your thick brains or through your thick skulls into your tiny brains. But maybe, just maybe, you might consider, is this guy was actually involved in the trial. He's had his house raided. He knows what the process has been like. He hasn't been found guilty of anything. He's seen and heard and witnessed stuff. He's given a really good explanation in terms of how they were operating, the rules of engagement, even to who was actually standing there in one of these allegations, the commanding officer of the entire regiment at that time, who said he saw nothing and heard nothing. And at that time, when this allegedly happened, was briefing the seniors, which would have likely been the sergeants, the patrol commanders, or the other patrol commanders, corporals or sergeants, whoever were in those roles as patrol commanders, in terms of next steps, what they're going to do and where they're going to go and what they found, etc., etc. But, I don't know if those that are hearty RS is guilty already, even though he hasn't gone to trial, even though there's been no conviction or anything yet. I don't know that you can get through the thickness of the skulls of those individuals.
Everyone's like, we're just going to pay off the CO's view on this. They want a very senior individual in defense, a colonel, is saying this blatantly didn't happen.
And running the SAS.
And implementing all these changes and the new changes after the report dropped about war crimes and accountability. And he's there saying none of this happened. And so let's talk about Whiskey 108. So Whiskey 108 is the cover term for that job where Ben's allegedly shot a dude with an old gimp leg.
Okay, so this is one of the incidents that he's been charged for murder with.
The main incident. So we'll talk about this one, and then we'll talk about Darwan, the cliff incident.
Okay.
So Whiskey
Darwan was 2012, wasn't it?
2012.
Yeah, so that's when I was over in Afghan.
Hell yeah, I was still a lid learning my trade in Holsworthy. Thanks for your service, Sam. Appreciate it.
A lid, for those that don't know, is a new fella. Excuse me, a jube, like fresh and just like you said, learning his craft and his trade. I hadn't heard that term. It's not a term that we use in NZ. Lid was, as far as I was aware, first time I was exposed to it anyway was when I was in Australia.
Well, you did.
You're welcome. Thank you also.
Yeah, you made my life a lot easier taking out all those bad dudes so I could walk around taking selfies on all the features. But Whiskey 108. So let's get into it. So I think it was Easter Sunday, actually. So very, very timely around now. 2009. Mm-hmm. So the SAS are coming back from a mission and they get a frantic call from 7RR, the battle group, I think Task Force Tusk. They're sitting up on a feature with ASLABs and they're laying into this compound that's shooting at them. Machine gun fire, RPGs, small arms. They're trying to kill the 7RR diggers up on the top of the hill. And this is a couple of weeks after I think they lost Hopkins, one of the soldiers. Yeah. I think it might have been around that time.
Yeah.
And then
apologies if we got that wrong.
Yeah, apologies. Like there's 41 years and I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. Love yous. So the boys are hooking in. There's a proper good old fashioned gunfight. Task Force Tusk come over the radio and say, "Please, SAS, help us. They might overrun us. We're tactically withdrawing with ASLABs while firing." And the SAS are rolling past in Bushmasters, just coming home. They've already got their multicam dressing gowns on and multicam slippers, and they get the call over the radio, "Can you help these diggers? They're in trouble." No dramas. That's what they're there for. They hop out, they dust off their multicam slippers, they push their strippers off them. Tanya Zayeda, get out. Got a job to do.
That's a joke, by the way.
Allegedly. And then they start advancing to this compound called Whiskey 108. They get to almost Whiskey 108, and there's still a lot of machine gun fire coming from Whiskey 108. So the JTAC drops a JDAM, a bomb, into the middle of that compound. And that kept everyone pretty quiet.
Just think about that. Drops a bomb into the middle of this compound, which I think Scott Jones described earlier as no bigger than, well, actually, he said the CO was standing in the middle of the compound, which was no bigger than half a basketball-sized court. So, maybe the compound itself is probably a bit more spread out. So, yeah, I acknowledge that. But they've dropped a bomb into the middle of the compound. Just let that sink in for a sec, people, whether you're military or not. probably those that are military probably don't really need to let it sink in because they've got a better understanding. Depending on where you served in the military. But in particular for those that haven't served in the military, and if those that serve in the military but not served in a combat role, and if you're watching this, just let that sink in for a sec. You're dropping a bomb into the middle of a compound to take out the compound, the suspected enemy within that compound, because they are shooting up and potentially going to overrun, I think he said the lads from 7 RAR, Task Force Tusk, I think it was what he shared. You're dropping a bomb into the compound, which is likely going to annihilate whoever's in that compound. Does that make sense? Is that sinking in terms of dropping a bomb into that compound? And then they're going in there after, I presume, to clean up. Like, I can't remember because I have watched this and I did do a live reaction to it, but it's been blocked on YouTube, so I'm doing the reactions this way. So far, the other ones are still showing on my channel. So I'm going to keep running with it and keep trying to do the reactions in this sort of format instead. But let's just hear the rest of what happens, because I can't remember what Scott Jones goes on to say.
That compound. So no matter what happens next, 7RR have said that whatever's happening in that compound, those individuals in that compound are so dangerous, we need to beg the SAS for help. 7RR don't like hearing that story because they're going to go, oh, go on, like, we're brave too.
Yeah.
And you were brave, but for whatever reason, that's the reality of what happened. The SAS came in, they dropped a bomb. They took out that compound, and now it's just rubble inside. Then as they're approaching the compound, I think it's person 18 in the trial, sees a dude walking, limping out of the compound, and he shoots him dead. And he would later go on to testify against Ben Robert Smith and say, he shot an unarmed person. My brother in Christ, you shot someone for limping.
Person 18 shoots somebody coming out of that compound limping, which is like, they're very fortunate if they got out of that compound just limping. But person 18 shoots that person dead. And then how does RS get the blame put on him for that? Because I would assume this is still all coming under that ROE 429 Alpha. That's what I assume all of this operation, or this particular aspect, but the vast majority of their operations, the kill capture nature of their operations and missions, I'm assuming that that's what this is coming under. So why is person 18 blaming RS for the person that they've killed who's limping out of a compound that has just been bombed, because the people within that compound were laying down that much hate and heat towards 7RAR troops, Task Force Tusk, if I heard correctly, that they needed to call for help from the regiment, which they did, and the regiment responded. RS and the rest of the troop patrol commanders and the troop at that time, and sounds like the CO, responded. Like, that doesn't make sense. Again, for those thick-skulled blanket peanuts out there that believe that RS is guilty, help me understand from your point of view what you're hearing and how and why. And if you connect the dots back on the other stuff that Scott Jones has said in this interview so far, how and why you're still coming to the conclusion that he's guilty. I presume you're coming purely down to, well, these other operators said. These are the nameless, faceless operators, or pseudonamed operators. Let's call them ballbag 1 through to however many there are, 1 to 4, let's say, except for Wank Drew Wasty or Wank Stain Wasty, who is, out there for everybody to see. So aside from those 4 or 5 people, if you include Wank Stain, reluctant to use Wank Stain because he's didn't witness anything, right? But he's one of those that's testifying as a witness against RS. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, let's carry on.
He didn't have a weapon. But both legal teams, Ben and Nick McKenzie's legal teams, just like, whatever. That killed. We're not here to talk about that one.
Oh, we won't talk about that one.
We won't talk about that
Don't
one.
worry about that one.
The old mate literally said in his...
Oh, wow. I'd forgotten all about that. Like I said, I have done a reaction to this before a while ago when I did it live, but it got blocked. I didn't remember that. That's interesting, eh? So the legal side for the media have said, oh, we will disregard that one. Let's not talk about that person. So person 18, I think Scott Jones said. So the plot just thickens even more, people. Those half-wits out there that are hell-bent on RS is a war criminal, what do you have to say about person 18, who is known as, or we don't know his name, but is known as having shot and killed somebody limping out of a compound that they've just dropped the bomb on? You're going to say that's okay because that's why, and that's where I was going with it. That's why I wanted you to sit and think about it, sit on it and think about it for a bit. Are you thinking then, oh, well, it must be okay because they dropped a bomb on that compound, so everybody in that compound must be bad? Is that right? Is that what you're thinking? Did I just read your mind? Or have you got some other Wankstein excuse or response that you want to put in the comments? If you do, please put it in and help enlighten me in terms of your thick-headedness in regards to your attack and hunting of Ben Roberts-Smith. So we'll forget about that, guys, what they're saying. We want to go back to this one or whatever else is happening. Like it does not make sense. Things aren't adding up. Anyway.
In his testimony, like, oh yeah, he was walking with a limp, so I shot him because he might have been carrying something heavy. Like, man, I got a bad knee. I walk with a limp. Don't shoot me, brother.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Perth if you're on the range. But anyway, so that takes place. Eventually, they go into the compound.
That's an interesting, That's what person 18 has said. And to me, I don't see anything wrong with that based on what I just shared earlier. 7RAR called for help. SAS responded. They've gone, bloody hell, those guys are fighting like heavy fire coming from that compound. I know what. We got air support, assets. Beep, beep. Hey, can you drop on this place here? They give the grid reference target. Boom, done. They go to move in because presumably everybody within that compound that they have just bombed and annihilated with a bomb, or they thought they had annihilated, there could potentially still be survivors. They go moving towards it. They see a person who's limping out of that because they just happened to survive that bomb blast. Who knows how they survived it, but they did. Under ROE 429 Alpha, if my understanding is correct, based on what Scott Jones has spoken about, playing an active threat, I see that person limping out of a place that we have just bombed. I'm engaging that threat to make sure that they're not moving to a weapon cache, to make sure that they're not moving to, that they've somehow got a suicide vest on them. Whatever the case may be. Why? Because kill capture ROE 429 Alpha, we can see them just come out of the compound that we have just bombed. So our intention by dropping the bomb was to obliterate and annihilate and take out anybody that was in there. You just happened to survive. You're limping out of there. Ka kits, sayonara, see you later. But they're not talking about that one for whatever reason. They want to hone in on just RS again. It's crazy to me. People like those that wholeheartedly believe that RS is guilty, please help me understand. Like genuinely, that's a genuine question. Type out your long novels, whatever it is that you want to do. If you're genuine with regards to your explanation and understanding of it, help me understand where you're coming from your perspective, and I will reply to it. If you reply like POE-RAVA, who was thoughtful, didn't appear to be jumping the gun, like was considered in his comment, which was different to mine, I will respond in kind. If you're a twat, I'm going to blink and just call you all sorts of names and I'll probably still reply. But I'm genuinely interested in those that have come to this conclusion, this absolute conclusion that RS is guilty. What are you basing that on when the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in our countries is supposed to stand and be sustained within the legal system and framework with which we have, with which people have fought and died for, with which people still within the defence forces will still continue to go and fight for, and if need be, tragically, risk it all for. Only to then have people like those of you out there who think that that doesn't apply and that he is guilty before he's even had a fair trial, before there's been any proof or conviction of beyond reasonable doubt. I'd love to understand where your head is at. Anyway, I've probably yapped on enough for that. I'll pause this one here. I'll come back to this and do another reaction to it later on. But yeah, I think for me, watching this a second time, even though I don't remember all of these bits, there'll be lots of parts that I don't remember. I put the question to you. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your comments. Particularly more so, well, anybody, but particularly those that have a different opinion. That, like I said, those that wholeheartedly believe that RS is guilty. What are you basing that on? And how do you reconcile or justify sitting back and claiming and stating boldly that RS is guilty when he hasn't had a trial, when he hasn't been convicted? Like, those are two pretty critical things. How do you, what's going on in your head? Anyway, that's enough from me. I'll leave this one here, and I'll see you on the next video.